Western North Carolina businesses need your financial support now more than ever in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. This month here on the Rock Fight, Darby Communications, based in Asheville, North Carolina, is donating its ad space to help other outdoor businesses in Western North Carolina get back on their feet. As part of the 828 endurance community, Darby Communications wants to showcase a fundraiser that Asheville local endurance brands Fuel Goods and Pressio have started through their Together We Rise t-shirt campaign. 100% of t-shirt sales will go to local outdoor businesses that lost everything, like Rockgeist Bikepacking USA, a U.S.-made custom bikepacking bag company, and Asheville Adventure Company and Adventure Trip Outfitters, and owners of Cultivate Climbing, Asheville's only climbing gym. Both businesses lost everything in the unprecedented flooding from Hurricane Helene. You can get your Together We Rise t-shirt and support Western North Carolina at Fuel Goods. That's FUELGOODS.com. I already got mine. Have you gotten yours? Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin, and today on the show, Outdoor Industry Association President Kent Ebersole joins me to talk about events and the future of the OIA. But first, please follow and rate the Rock Fight wherever you're listening on whatever podcast app you are listening to us on. Leave us that 5-star rating. And listen, folks, you're outdoorsy. You work in the outdoor industry. You're listening to The Rock Fight. You need to check out Gear and Beer. That's our other podcast here on the Rock Fight Podcast Network, where Justin Hausman and I crack open a beer, we review some gear, have a few laughs. You can find it on the app that you're using right now. Follow that show. All right, let's start the show.
Welcome to the Rock Fight, Rock Fight, Rock Fight.
Last week, in another sign that Toto, we are for sure not in Kansas anymore, the Outdoor Industry Association announced that it would be partnering with the Switchback trade show in 2025. This came after the announcement this past summer that the OIA parted ways with Outdoor Retailer, another Toto/Kansas moment, because for a long time, the OIA and OR were synonymous. For many folks, the Outdoor Industry Association was simply the organization you had to join in order to get your booth discount at OR. So naturally, the online commentary arrived swiftly when the news broke about the OIA partnering up with OR's biggest competitor, and for good reason, because look, let's be honest here. The topic of outdoor events and trade shows is something we're obsessed with in this industry. We all seem to agree that having a big gathering is important and something we all want, but there's very little agreement about where and when to have that gathering. And in some of that trade show discourse arose specific questions about the role of the OIA and where they should be leading on behalf of the industry. So, to get some answers, I reached out to Kent Ebersole, the president of the Outdoor Industry Association, and he's here on the show today. And we talk about the decision to move on from OR, to team up with Switchback, and what the present and future focus of the OIA is and should be. Welcome back to the Rock Fight, where today, it's the OIA's big Switchback decision with Kent Ebersole. All right, we're joined today by the president of the Outdoor Industry Association, Kent Ebersole. Welcome to the show, Kent.
Thank you very much.
So you're just back from the OIA's board of directors meeting. How did that all go?
Fantastic. We do it in Chautauqua and Boulder, and it's a great place to meet and talk about the future and be outdoors.
That does feel very on brand that it's at Chautauqua and Boulder. That feels like it's where it should be, frankly.
Should be in a cabin.
Much to my chagrin, I tend to pick a fight with Boulder and Colorado a lot, but it does make sense. I co-sign that. That makes sense.
Yeah. We had an office there for so many years that I think it lives on when we come back once a year to be at that place. It's a wonderful place, too.
Well, let's not beat around the bush and keep the audience waiting. Earlier this summer, the OIA, you guys announced that you were ending your relationship with Outdoor Retailer. And then just last week, you announced that you're going to be beginning a new partnership next month with Switchback, the current outdoor arm of the running event. And then in 2025, becoming a standalone competitor to Outdoor Retailer. So let's start with what happened over the summer. Why was it time to move on from the partnership with Outdoor Retailer?
Sure. It's a good question. I think because I've been in the industry long enough, it's important to go back and talk about Outdoor Retailer in whole. And I wouldn't be here if it were not for Outdoor Retailer. It's part of why it's you and I met at Outdoor Retailer.
That's
it's
right.
What happens. And it's been such an influential part of this industry and how we've moved forward and what we've done. the excitement at the show around innovation, it was real. It was real and tangible, and you could feel it. But the world changed, and our industry changed, and it's continuing to change. I've changed, and so we're not the only ones. And I recently met with the president of the International Housewares Association. They own their trade show, and listened to him talk, and he just talked for 15 minutes about change. And so a lot of this is about change and about how we adopt change and what we do with that change. And that is not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I've got a team, a staff of people that are all about change. The people at Outdoor Retailer, Sean and Lindsay, they're super smart. They're really good people. I really enjoy them. But that relationship was part of the change. And by the way, Rockfight, you were here because of change. And 10 years ago, there was no podcast like this, and the media world changed, and here you are. Right. So we're all part of that. It's not a bad thing. We've built a little team here, a mighty team around change at OIA.
So then what was intriguing about teaming up with Switchback? Like, what was looking at that, at the change being the kind of primary driver of sort of ending an era and then beginning a new one? What was it about Switchback that led you to feel like this was the right decision today?
Sure. I think it's tough because to me, there's 3 or 4 really good reasons why. I think first off, and I could interchange these really, but I think first off, the people. Christina Henderson, Mark Sullivan, Beth Gordon, Marcus Wolf, just fantastic people. I've known them for a long time. They're just good people. And I met a lot of them, the C-suite or the corporate team, when I was at Active Interest Media, probably 10 or 15 years ago, when we were in an acquisition mode and we were talking to them. And I liked them then, and I like them now. So really good people. Secondly, I like the focus of what they've presented. I really like the focus. They're not trying to be a show for everyone all at once on day one. They're not trying to be a race to see who has the biggest booth. They're just focused on the kinds of companies and brands that will be there. And I think to me, that means impact for OIA members. It really means that if there is some focus right now, there'll be greater impact. And I really like that. I think we all like that. And then I guess thirdly, I don't know if it's the word is thoughtfulness, but they really did their homework. They presented it to us. They have a nice long-term solution. They have a proven track record of bringing groups together, especially with TRE. So I think that to me equates to retailer value, brand value. I really appreciate that and like that. So to me, people, intent, focus, long-term plan, that's a lot, rolled up into one.
What do you anticipate, just thinking about the presence you guys have had at Outdoor Retailer over the years, are you anticipating doing something similar at Switchback? How do you feel like you guys, and it's early, well, I guess it's not that early days. We're talking next month, right, is the show. So how do you feel like the OIA will show up at Switchback this fall?
Yeah, and to be clear, our partnership with them officially begins in June of 2025. Okay. So our presence this fall will be limited. We'll have some component to speak at the show, and we're discussing that right now. But we have space, and we will talk. But in June of 2025, our ability to be part of the planning, part of the theme of what's discussed, innovation, how we talk about the challenges in the industry, we're heavily part of that conversation with them. They've invited us into that. We will lead a lot of those sessions and those discussions and have impact on where the direction that the show goes from a thought leadership standpoint. I think that's really important, and we really like that opportunity to really be part of that theme and bring it together, wrap it all up.
Is this a similar to, maybe not similar because there was decades involved with Outdoor Retailer, but I mean, how long do you feel like, what's the upfront commitment to Switchback as you guys are starting this relationship?
What do you mean upfront commitment?
I mean, are you we're signed up for 5 years or 10 years, or is it
Gotcha. We have a nice partnership with them. It's not an exclusive partnership with them. We have a nice partnership with them that'll get us through the next couple of years.
So that's a great segue then to kind of get into sort of the larger outdoor events and sort of the role the OIA plays, right? So events are a topic where this has been kind of an interesting thing to observe over the last few years, where the industry is simultaneously aligned in that we all agree that events are important and we want to attend them, but then we're also completely at odds on what that actually means. And kind of you mentioned there's been a lot of change. We're in this kind of new era, but for the better part of 4 decades, look, there was one national gathering that happened twice a year, and whether you were a retailer brand or part of the media or just looking for someone to finance your big adventure for you, you turned up to Outdoor Retailer. And that is completely fractured now. So, because there's more options. And on top of it, there are a lot of voices from the industry, particularly on LinkedIn, that criticize the state of shows. Last week, Peter Sachs, the GM of Loa, wrote the following in a post that went up after the Switchback and OIA announcement came out. Peter wrote, just bear with me for a second here, I want to read this to you. What OIA could have done was show some independent industry leadership by staying neutral between Switchback and Outdoor Retailer, grassroots, and the regional rep groups to work and find consensus about dates that work for all the various entities. So all of that to kind of say, is staying neutral something that was considered? Was that on the table, or did you feel like you always needed to have an alignment with an existing show?
So first off, I'm not really sure what he means by staying neutral. I don't really know if I understand that. So what I would say is I'm just so much a bigger fan of talking in person than social media. And you can look at my LinkedIn and you can see that I'm lazy. There's a lot of requests to connect with people, and I'm sorry. It's not because I don't want to, just a little bit lazy on LinkedIn. And so I just think it's easier to say things on social media that you might not say in person, or you might interpret differently. So I'm all about talking about this, and I appreciate that opportunity. Now, to be fair, I've known Peter for a long time. I consider him friends. I suspect we've known each other for 20 years. We don't always agree, and sometimes we disagree a lot. I think his voice is really important, and I think it's an important voice in the industry. But there's others. There's a lot of others, and some of those voices that I hear, that I talk to, and I listen to have never been to OR, and they've never been to GOA for a variety of reasons. And there's a lot of those people. So I have traveled for 29 weeks out of the 41 weeks so far in this year. This is the 41st week of the year, 29 of those weeks. And in those 29 weeks, I've met with CEOs, small, medium, large businesses. I met with brands, retailers, owners, practitioners, team members, had lunch, dinner, breakfast, product managers, founders, you name it. If they were a member of OIA, or I was trying to get them to be a member, I've tried to meet with as many people possible. And if you're sitting out there listening to this right now and you say, well, you didn't come meet me, my lovely wife also would like me to be at home every once in a while. Second to that, and I mean second to that, I do have a really nice new road bike that needs to be ridden before it gets too cold this year. So I think, and I know, and I've talked to them, that there's a rising generation of industry leaders, again, that have not been to OR for whatever reason and cannot go to GOA for whatever reason, because they're not part of that select group of people. And they don't go to the regional events. And they look at Switchback and they're stoked. They are stoked to have a place where they can show up and be part of the convening, part of the community, and part of the industry. That industry, that group of people is not as vocal in LinkedIn. They're out there, though. All you have to do is spend 29 weeks going from brand to brand to brand and talking.
That's all we got to do? Just the 29 weeks?
That's all you got to do.
That's it?
And I will tell you, if you looked at my Google, I think we talked about this. If you look at my Google Maps for this month of September, ironically, 29 also, I was at 29 different cities in the month of September meeting with members. So I listened to a lot of them, and that's what I heard. I heard there's a desire to come to Switchback and be part of that. So that was a collective member response from us when we decided to have this partnership. And there is overwhelming support for that event. That's
I don't want to. No, I don't want to feel like, Peter, if you listen to this, that I was doing you dirty by cherry picking one piece of your post, because there was a lot more there. I think the sentiment being either show up at all the events or don't go to any of the events, right? Was kind of the sentiment, right? And which, I mean, just sitting back, I could understand that, right? It's like, you're going to have members at all of them. Like to your point, I think I understand what you just described is like, listen, here's the consensus of the ones I met with, but there's going to be folks who still go to OR, who do go to GOA and all the rep shows and everything. So, and I could see that point of view of like, listen, how should I view the OIA if they're only going to one? But, you guys are definitely in sort of a rock and hard place situation with that. Like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And everybody's going to have an opinion.
Yeah, but I don't think that that means we're not just going to one. I mean, I went to GOA this year, and I'd love to come back. I hope that they open that invite again to come back. I think I believe in what they do. I believe in Gabe, and I believe in that board, and I would love to come back. I do not think our intention at something like GOA is to get in the way of a really good show. Like, I don't think we need to do that. But I think we should have a presence there, and I'd like to have a presence there. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a possibility. Now, obviously, this year with Outdoor Retailer, that the dates and timing don't work, and I know dates and timing are a lot. But let's go back one step here. I think it's important to understand what our strategy is. And number one, very important, is for us to own events. I think it's important for us to own events. And I'm not talking about some sort of fiduciary ownership of events, but the content and the theme and the deliverables and how we manage that is important for us to maintain that. And we learned that over the last 4 or 5 years, that it's important for us. And so we introduced the Catalyst Conference in Seattle this year with support from Gore-Tex, with generous support from Gore-Tex. It's November 13th in Seattle, and we sold it out in a hot minute. And we planned really small, right? And we didn't think we were going to have 1,000 people there or 500 people there. It was intended to be a regional event. It got a little bit bigger than that. We're oversold. That's the kind of event we want. Its focus is on sustainability. It's a day of sustainability. Next year, I think we'll have a couple days of sustainability in a different location. I hear you East Coast members, we're coming east next year. Everything doesn't have to be west, so we will come east. And we're doing it at the Mountaineers. So we're at an outdoor location, the generous help from Tom Vogel and the Mountaineers and his team. They're fantastic. I believe that's part of what we should do. We'll reinvigorate Capital Summit in April in Washington, D.C. So owned events, there may be more, but right now we're going to start, and it's about impact, about member impact. Secondly, strategy. We have to have really strong partnerships. And Switchback is the first of what may be many strong partnerships. Right now, that's our first dip back into the partnership pool. We believe in it for what I told you last time, and so we'll see what happens. But that's our second, or that's the second part of this strategy. And by the way, again, we love Switchback. It's not an exclusive partnership. They're not trying to restrict us from being at other places and other locations. They're fantastic. They're super understanding. They believe in the industry. Lastly, and the third part of this is we need to be where our members are. And so they may not always be at GOA or at OR or at Switchback. They may be at places like Functional Fabric Fair or other events in the industry. And so we'll continue to have a relationship with those brands or those events in which we'll be there. And we may do something. We may keynote. We may have an event. We may do something. It's not an official partnership. It's not like we are the themed partner. We're the official partner of that event. But we'll be there, and we'll be present, and we'll be super active. So 3 parts. We're going to own events. We're going to partner on a limited basis. And we'll be at as many events as possible to support and be active.
I can't imagine anyone having an issue hearing you say that, because I think that it goes back to my original point when we moved into the events as at large, that there's not an agreement. We all want to gather, but we all disagree on how we should gather. And when I hear people just throw out the blanket statement, and I'm moderating a trade show event at Outdoor Media Summit next week, right? And this is something that's going to come up there. It's such an easy thing to say that we should have a large national gathering. But what people forget is the reason we had a large national gathering before that was universally accepted, it came out of trade. It was a trade show, and it grew up around that, but there was a root purpose for why people were coming together. Now, consumer shows are great. I understand them, and I wish Outside all the best with its festival. It sounded like the music part, at least, I think there was some issues with maybe some of the other parts, but the music part went really well. But I got to tell you, that's not for me. Like, I don't care if it was in San Diego and it was 10 minutes from my house. I probably still wouldn't go because I'm just not a music festival guy, right? So a trade show, it's like when I was working for brands, well, you got to come to this as part of your job, and then it grows around it. Same thing with another good example that doesn't get talked about enough with this is the GoPro Mountain Games. That's been around for years. Frankly, I had more of a chance of you getting me to the mountain games and to, a music festival. But even then, it's like, do I really feel like going to Vail, like to go watch people kayak, or rather just go kayaking myself?
Kayak on my own,
So
yeah.
when we can't, the reason why I don't think this is ever going to be a settled debate is because that blanket thing is so easy to say that we need a national gathering, but you got to understand why you're gathering to begin with. So hearing that the OIA is planning on, I mean, I look back to the rendezvous back in the day, and I always felt like that was an underutilized model. It felt whenever we'd go to those that it was great, but I didn't always know if it was, it was like, okay, well, why are we going to this other than it is just to get together? So if you can create a meaningful reason, whether it's sustainability, going to DC, I think that's something that you could probably potentially grow.
Yeah. So I have a couple comments on this.
Yeah.
I hear you about rendezvous. I don't think we have intentions
We didn't know
of
at the time, right? We had OR. It's like, what is
yeah,
this other thing? And it was just, I'm not like trying to
exactly.
be Monday morning quarterback. It was what it was.
I think that's why Catalyst sold out so quick.
Yeah,
What are we
probably.
doing here? And if you are part of this, come. And if you're not part of this, you're probably not going to enjoy that event. And we've been very clear about telling people what it's about. Capital Summit. You want to engage at the highest level in Washington, D.C. about issues that impact our industry, we have an opportunity for you to do that. I'll just go back one other step. I said in the very beginning, outdoor retailer, I've been going for a long time. I've been going since it was in Reno, and if that ages me, then it ages me. But every single show I ever went to, including the ones that had 25 or 30,000 people and thousands of exhibitors, there was grumbling. Every single show I've been to, there was
Everyone.
grumbling about something. And this may not be the best analogy, but go back to high school. And in high school, I had a hard enough time in chemistry class just keeping up. There was always someone in the background that was doing the grumbling that dragged the whole class down.
Right.
And so I don't. I would go to outdoor retailer. I'd hear that grumbling, and I'm like, I just can't be involved in that. It's just too much because it was a fantastic show for the world, for the outdoor industry at that time. So I fully get that. Maybe it won't be solved or resolved, but I don't want to be a part of the grumbling. I just want to be a part of the future. And if our members say this is part of the future, then we should be there. One other comment you mentioned, rock and a hard place. And I don't know if I look at it that way. I look at it a little bit different, and maybe this, I don't know, I could be wrong. It feels to me like if it's a rock and a hard place, you have two unpleasant solutions, and oh crap, it's either this or that. And I don't think it's that situation. I think of what's happening in North Carolina or Florida right now. They're between a rock and a hard place. We're just trying to make better decisions about our businesses, and we have a couple options. I think the option of going to Switchback obviously is a fantastic option. GOA is a fantastic option. For some people, outdoor retailer is going to work for them, but we've chosen to work in that partnership level of our strategy with GOA. I don't think it's a rock and a hard place for us.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, last thing I want to talk to you about is just sort of where the OIA is and where it should go. And just like speaking, I mean, even I've had this kind of notion over the years. I always just kind of associated the OIA with OR, which I think is why we want to have this conversation, right? Is just a lot of a view the way the industry is, what the role of the OIA is, and like, oh, that's the group that gets me my discount on my booth, right? That's kind of typically how a lot of folks, at least at brands anyway, might view the OIA. And so just while we have you, I want to kind of say like, what is the purpose that the role that the organization serves today, and what do you want it to serve? Because in contrast, and over the last few years, to your point about change, like the Outdoor Rec Roundtable has gained notoriety. And so what exactly, how do you view the OIA and fits into its role in 2024? And then what do you think it should be in the future? What would you like it to be in the future?
Sure. Well, you hit the nail on the head with the old discount on my expensive booth space, and
Right.
that
Well, I got to join the OIA.
Yeah,
I got to get my discount.
I got to tell you, as a business model, that'll work for a little bit, but it's a really bad reason to rely on.
Well, no, but then people
that.
forget what you actually do, right? I mean, that's kind of the point. Yeah.
Right. And so I've been here 2 years, and we have spent 2 years fixing that business model. And for anybody to say, I have no idea what OIA does, well, first of all, we have to have a solid foundation to do anything that we do. And it's not easy when you have a business model that relies on a trade show, like you just said. And also a business model where we would go to a trade show and people would think we were one and the same. And we'd pat ourselves on the back and go, we're pretty good at what we do because there was a lot of money coming in. And so when you actually have to be accountable for what you do, it forces you to really work hard and be super focused. And a lot of the things that we might have done in the past just may not matter to members as much as we thought. So we've spent 2 years fixing the foundation and working on what matters to members. And there were good things that we did, just don't have the ability to do it in this new business model. So I'll tell you there's 3 things that we focus, 3 or 4 things we focus on right now, 4 things. Number 1 is government affairs or advocacy. And it's just really simple. We are fighting on behalf of the industry in Washington, D.C., and at the state level for the needs of the industry. And that's sometimes in trade, it's sometimes in recreation, conservation, access, equity, those kinds of things. But we're in there for the battle, and we've been in there, and we have a brand new senior director of advocacy, and she is phenomenal, Jacqueline Levy. And people are going to love her, and she will bring strategic value and direction to this organization and more voice than we've ever had. So I'm super stoked about government affairs and where we go with that. But it's a fight. We are fighting in there. And if you've ever come to Cap Summit or if you've ever come to one of our fly-ins, you know what we're fighting for. And I'm happy to tell people about that. So secondly, that's a simple way to tell you what we do there. Secondly, and by the way, as part of that advocacy fight, we will introduce this year some workforce development initiatives, specifically in the DEI workforce space. We've heard this for years. With the unfortunate demise of Camber, there's a little bit of space that we can pick up there. We have 2 funded phases. We have 3 phases, but we're ready to roll out phase 1. It'll happen soon. It'll come under that advocacy umbrella, and we have a lot of support from a lot of industry people. We just haven't opened up that door yet, but it'll happen soon. We've hired this person. So I'm really excited to talk about that. I'll call you when we're ready and have the correct people on this call. Okay, sustainability. Again, we work on behalf of members and the industry. These complex issues of sustainability. We do a little bit of offense and we do a little bit of defense. Offense is in Climate Action Corps, where we will help your company be prepared in that climate fight that we're in. And secondly, right now it's in chemicals, mostly in PFAS, but there's a long list of other compliance issues coming. We kind of take our government affairs team and we kind of take our sustainability team, we mash them together at the state level, and we're helping play defense in that end. But I tell you, there's no one that knows more about PFAS than our consultants that come in and help our brands on a daily basis. And for those couple hundred members that are engaged in our programs, I don't know what they do without it. They just don't have the time, ability, or money to go hire these people on their own. And the people that do, the larger brands, are there supporting them. It's classic industry. I'm competing with you, but I'm going to help you because we're all going to get better.
Well, that's kind of what I was wondering, like with some of these things, what I'm usually critical of on the show when it comes to brands and sustainability and circularity efforts, it's usually just, listen, you're trying to find the way around, how do I get more sustainable or circular without sacrificing any profits along the way? And I recognize that. I used to work for brands. I was a sales director, right? So I understand the need for profits. But there's also at some point you look at the larger problem and realize, well, you're not going to get there probably unless you kind of like you have to take some big leaps here, and that's going to probably cost you some money along the way. So how was that? How was your role? How does the OIA's role kind of fit into that to kind of say, hey, look, you're a member, we're supporting you, but I got to strong arm you a little bit right now into doing probably what we all need you to do?
2 answers to that. They might not be perfect, but I'll tell you what we're trying to do. We're trying to broaden the education in sustainability so that if you can't commit to that high level, if you can't get a seat at the table because you don't have time, staff, resources, you can still start thinking about how to do it better. There's a big leap to that table, as you said, and not everybody can do it. We have resources. We're trying to open them up so that if you're one of those brands or retailers that just can't do it, we're going to try to provide some resources. We have not been good at that. We are going to get much better at that. Julie Brown is our sustainability director. She's phenomenal. She came from that world.
Downtown Julie Brown from MTV?
You got her.
Sorry. I couldn't
affectionately call her that. It's not her. She's
I
way
didn't think
better
it was,
than,
but it's amazing. Can you imagine going through life, every Gen Xer in the world coming up to her like, oh my God, it's Downtown Julie Brown.
She's way better than Downtown Julie Brown, I will tell you that. And everybody that's better knows that. So the second part of that answer is this massive investment that we've made into research and data and insights.
Yeah.
And it will continue next year, and it will continue specifically in opening that door. I suspect from talking to brands that are involved in these sustainability programs that just because your pack is fully sustainable or recyclable or has full circularity doesn't mean the consumer is going to buy it. And if it's $200 compared to a $100 backpack, you gotta prove yourself, because I don't think the consumer's there yet. Here's the thing. I just know that anecdotally from the brands that have made the commitment.
Right.
We want to invest into the research to figure out what that means, what the consumer behavior is, why they're doing it, and also at the different age gaps, at the different levels of activity. So I'm a core backpacker. I'll spend $300 on a backpack.
Right.
Versus the casual consumer that goes out there and says, why would I spend more money on this just because it is recyclable or whatever it is.
Right.
We're going to try to help the industry figure that out by investing heavily in 2025 in that space. And I think it's more than just investing in the data. It's about analyzing that data and delivering it back in the so what. I say it all the time. So here's the data. So what?
So what?
What does
What's
it
the
mean?
so what? Yeah.
So we're going to make an investment in that, in more data, giving more data, but also providing that so what, and trying to be an industry leader so that when you're making decisions, you can look at this content and say, this helped us make better decisions.
Yeah, I think that this all goes back to your opening remarks about change, right? And I think I appreciate you saying we probably haven't been doing as good a job as we should have been because of the, you kind of get, got a little fat on the trade show money back in the day, right? Which is all predates you. So, but the
Wait, are you saying I'm fat? Is that what you just said?
The organization. No, but I think I recognize it when the last Denver show I went to, the last Denver OR, which was the first time I had seen the show post-pandemic, where it was mostly like pool toys and there was no of the legacy outdoor brands there. But then the OIA presentation was all about hiking and kayaking and on participation. I'm like, this is not matching what's happening right now. So to hear you guys spending some time taking a step back and really thinking about this, I think is super encouraging. I guess the only other question I have, and this might seem like a dumb question, but I've heard multiple people say this. How do you differentiate from the Outdoor Rec Roundtable? Both of you lobby in Washington. Yeah. Where there seems like there is some crossover, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. No. But when you kind of look at, and obviously, and what you just described in terms of member services, circularity, sustainability for brands and industry stuff, that is not what they do. But on the surface, someone who's maybe not as familiar with these things might not quite get the difference.
Yeah. Before we go there, I would be remiss to mention also that our foundation, the Outdoor Foundation, is another part of what we do. It engages in participation. And we helped over 90,000 underserved kids, youth, get out in the industry. And to me, that is the difference between growth in youth that we're seeing, especially at the BIPOC level, or not. And if we don't do that as an industry, not just us, but all the other great nonprofits out there doing this, in 10 years, we're going to feel it. And as the population changes. So it's really an important part of what we do. Okay, OR. I think they're a fantastic team. I think they do great work. To me, it's really simple. There's this Venn diagram, and they do work over here, and we do work over here, and in the middle we meet. And sometimes the middle is a little bit thicker than others, and sometimes it's thinner. I think that Jess and myself and our teams know where we meet in the middle. And when we meet in the middle and we decide to engage on policy or something, we work well together. It's really fantastic. We have to be comfortable, though, with letting them do their thing. And they're comfortable with us doing our thing. And to be very clear about that, the needs for a boot manufacturer, a footwear manufacturer, are different than the needs of somebody making snowmobiles. And
that's how I've always described it. It's like, we are very OIA, very human powered, driven. ORR kind of like the 90 plus categories in the BEA report. Like they kind of do it for everybody.
Yeah, but some of that work we meet in the middle, and some of that work you might get a snowmobiler and a snowshoer, and they look at each other with crossed eyes. But at the end of the day, that space that they're on is protected because we did work together. And if either one of those groups can't be out there doing their thing, then that's on both of us, ORR and OIA.
Right.
So I have great respect for what they do. We really, when we focus, we do a great job. I was on the phone with them a couple of weeks ago with Senator Bennett from Colorado. As a group of people, some human-powered, some non-human-powered,
Right.
we're fighting to preserve and conserve and make sure that legislation is passed to benefit all of us. And there's a lot of legislation where we both agree upon. There's some legislation out there to make sure that these small towns that are gateway towns to industry recreation have affordable places for people to live so that they can be your waiter or waitress or be your park ranger or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Because when you go out there and you come back from your hiking or snowshoeing or snowmobiling trip and you can't find a decent place to eat or a good place to stay for the night, that's a miss. And that's what we're fighting for together on some of those things. So I think they do great work. I'm on the board. I believe in what they do. I don't think people should be too confused about it.
Right.
We're both fighting.
Yeah, that's the next rock fight I really picked that I'm really going to zero in on. I'm so tired of the silos and the walls we've all put up around ourselves. Like, look, you don't have to like motorsports, but you have to acknowledge they exist, and you may have some common interests with the people who are doing different things differently than you, and not just get mad. Like, we're all supporting when we're talking about legislation, we're talking about access. Like, it's all the same.
Jess, as most people know, Jess came from OIA. She knows better what our needs are than anybody else here.
Yeah, right.
And she will fight like crazy for the needs, the broader needs of this industry. And she's really good at it. And I greatly value that. Nobody has our team, their team. I don't believe there's a beef. We're very clear about what we do.
Yeah. No, and I don't really shouldn't get the sense that people think there's a beef. I think there's just a little confusion, right? It's like, how am I supposed to view both of these things? But
we don't have confusion. We know. And again, her team is fantastic, and the energy that they bring to the table, it's real. It's real energy.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, listen, we really appreciate you coming on. I'm excited to hear about what you have plans for the future, the acknowledgments you made about the past, and how you want to build off of it and grow the organization. I think love to have you back on. Let's check in like 6-8 months, see where things are, see how we're progressing. Really appreciate you making some time for us today, Ken.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, if you people out there that listen to this, send me good or nasty comments on LinkedIn. I'm not responding, not because I don't want to respond. This is not my thing. My phone number has been the same phone number since 1995. Many people have it. Call me. Don't call me at midnight. Text me. My email address is easy to get. Just email me. I'm happy to converse. So I'm wide open to have conversations.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Colin. Take care.
All right, that's the show for today. Big thanks to my guest, Kent Ebersole. What did you think about what he had to say? What shows are you planning on going to in 2025? We want your feedback. Send your emails to myrockfight@gmail.com. The Rock Fight is a production of Rock Fight LLC. I'm Colin True. Thanks for listening. Here to take us out, it's Krista Makes with the Rock Fight song. We'll see you next time, Rock Fighters.
Rock fight.